On the show in the past, I've talked much about emotivism, and I won't go into great detail now. Suffice to say, emotivism is the operating principle that your pleasure, your feelings are more important than the truth, than the objective truth. In other words, so if it feels good, do it. This has become the operating philosophy of the present. And in the present, because of emotivism, it is really easy to find stories that defy logic. I do it on the show on a regular basis. I did it on the show this past Tuesday with Marquette University and their workshop about changing the voices of young boys and girls to match their gender identity, supposedly. But of course, an endless resource, a well that doesn't seem to ever have a bottom. To the insanity is to always go to the Twitter page or the Instagram page of the New Evangelicals. They are a dependable source for trite arguments made by unimpressive men. And here we have another one as they target the Babylon Bee on the subject of abortion. So Joel Berry is from the Babylon Bee, and he said this: the framing of the CNN story isn't saying they wanted an abortion because of a birth defect. Kentucky Medicaid wouldn't pay for premature delivery to induce death, so they traveled out of state for a D&E abortion. The reason they couldn't hold the baby was because she was in pieces. Now, as tragic as that is, even more tragic perhaps is the supposed New Evangelicals, and this is what they said in response to Joel. This framing of this take is vile. The baby was missing part of their brain and would either suffer for hours or be stillborn. To minimize the suffering of the fetus, they wanted to end the pregnancy early, but couldn't because of Kentucky's strict abortion law. Now, a couple of points about our friends over at the New Evangelicals, and by friends, I mean heretics. The first thing is this, is that we could just talk about the fact that the New Evangelicals are trying to prove the rule by using an exception and just stop right there. Of course, this birth defect that this child is dealing with in this story, as we'll get into in a moment, is a devastating birth defect and one that typically leads to the death of the baby. But it is also incredibly rare. To suggest that we need abortions just because we need to minimize the suffering of the baby, as we'll see in a moment, is ludicrous, and it is a straw man, to say the least. They are not really interested in actually talking about the vast majority of abortions, which are done about to the tune of 98%, just simply done out of convenience or because of fear or because of lack of money. But in terms of incest and rape and life of the mother, only about 2% of abortions every single year are actually as a result of that, and that is being charitable. But, to be that honest would deny the multiple layers of ignorance and dishonesty that are on display by the New Evangelicals. So let's go to the second point here and push that to the side. The New Evangelicals just discovered what abortion is, apparently. But welcome to the party, boys. Abortion is always something that is devastating and difficult for the people that have it. I'm glad you are extending your sympathy toward this couple in Kentucky that had to get an abortion and are reeling from the aftermath of this abortion because they couldn't hold their dead baby one last time before they finally said goodbye to it. And that's ultimately what this story was about, is that they weren't able to say goodbye to their baby. And that was so devastating because of Kentucky's laws there in that state, made that family have to go somewhere else where they could only get a D&E, which kind of cuts the baby up in pieces. And so we're supposed to feel bad for the fact that this couple wasn't able to hold their baby. And of course, we do, but we also feel bad for the fact that abortion cuts babies up into pieces. So again, welcome to the party. This is abortion. I'm glad you don't like it very much, New Evangelicals. I'm glad you can extend sympathy for these people who are reeling from the fact that their baby was just cut up into pieces. But maybe then we should probably start talking about being pro-life then, don't you think? Point 3. The New Evangelicals claim that what this family did by getting an abortion was to minimize the suffering of the fetus. So I'm glad the New Evangelicals are reading from the left playbook, because the fetus, quote, fetus, is actually a baby, and abortion, whether you like it or not, is murder. It's not minimizing suffering. But let's analyze their claim just so that we can be incredibly fair. This baby was suffering from anencephaly, and this is a neurodisorder that causes the baby to be born with the top part of its skull, where its brain can even be exposed and all that kind of stuff. Now, there's a couple of things that you should know about anencephaly. First of all, it is possibly treatable according to the CDC, as you'll see up on the screen now. So you can treat anencephaly with folic acid, and you can try to do the best that you can to try to help this baby. Chances are that it will not work, because I want to be fair here and be honest. But the reality is that no doctor's verdict is final until that baby is born. So let's dig down a little bit deeper, because the new evangelicals claim that this would minimize the suffering of the baby. Well, here's one minor problem here. Anencephaly impairs the pain receptors of the baby's brain, so the baby would not feel pain if it was born with anencephaly. So much for minimizing pain and suffering. One final point about all of this, and this is where I have to be really, really honest. What this couple wanted was to be spared pain themselves. This was not about the pain of the baby. It was about the pain of delivering a baby in this situation. And listen, it's understandable. I would hate to see my child in that predicament, in that situation, only to be born and then to either die immediately or to die a couple days later. But like all abortive efforts, no matter how you try to run cover, in a word, to perform an abortion simply because you don't want to have to go through the pain of having a child that would be born in this condition that might be able to survive, that might be able to overcome this thing, at least if you gave it the chance, at least if you didn't abort it unnecessarily. In a word, to merely abort this baby, we have to acknowledge the other competing interest here. And the other competing interest is that you just don't want to have to go through that trauma. And in a word, that is selfish. Look, I get it. I have sympathy for this couple and what they must be going through. I hate that they couldn't hold their baby one last time. But as always, human sympathy is not the answer when we face life's biggest questions. As a Christian, and perhaps even if you're not one, I would encourage you to think about this. When you look at life's biggest questions, it's important to go to life's biggest book. The place where you go when you don't know what to do is you go to God's word. And once again, we see the pro-life stance is not only the only biblical stance that you can take, it is also the only rational one. But the thought process has never been something that is really a strong suit of the new evangelicals. But let's just make sure if you are a real evangelical, that it is your strong suit. You need to be a defender of basic reality. And you need to be somebody who doesn't fall for the sympathetic and emotive arguments that we often hear on the left. If you're going to do that, you need to think for yourself. And I'd love to hear what you think about everything we just heard down in the comment section below. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and to go with God. So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely want to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.